Curious Naked Diatribes. Curious Naked Diatribes.
Curious Naked Diatribes.
The Palestinian struggle is the greatest moral issue of our time, and yet the world remains silent. Nelson Mandela. Greetings and blessings, and welcome back to Curious Naked Diatribes. In the previous episode of CND, I gave a little background on the term apartheid and talked about an early manifestation of it in South Africa from 1948 to the early 90s. Now I'd like you to take a listen to this speech by then Senator Joe Biden from 1986.
We must not aim to impose ourselves, our solutions, our favorites in South Africa. Damn it, we have favorites in South Africa. The favorites in South Africa are the people who are being repressed by that ugly white regime. We have favorites. Our loyalty is not to South Africa, it's to South Africans. And the South Africans are majority black, and they are being excoriated. It is not to some stupid puppet government over there. It is not to the Afrikaners regime. We have no loyalty to them. We have no loyalty to South Africa, to South Africans. And the fact of the matter is I listen to this rationale, first of all. It is the leaders of South Africa and their people, black and white, who have the majority responsibility. They must rise to it. Well, they are rising to it. They're rising to it. The only thing left available to them with that repulsive, repugnant regime of Afrikaners there. And it's the only way they have. They've tried everything for the last 20 years. They begged, they borrowed, they crawled, and now they're taking up arms. The second thing, progress toward peace requires a timetable. Timetable, elimination of apartheid. What's our timetable? What are we saying to that repugnant regime? Are we saying you've got 20 days, 20 months, 20 years? We ask them to put up a timetable. What's our timetable? These people are being crushed. And we're sitting here with the same kind of rhetoric. The same thing we heard. We heard go slow. We heard we have to take care of the problem afterwards. We heard we can't impose.
You are totally misconstruing.
I'm not calling for violence.
That's what you're doing.
I hate to hear.
Exactly what you're doing.
I hate to hear an administration and a Secretary of State refusing to act on a morally abhorrent point.
That ugly white regime, that repulsive, repugnant regime. They've tried everything for the last 20 years. They begged, they borrowed, they crawled, and now they're taking up arms. I hate to hear an administration and a Secretary of State refusing to act on a morally abhorrent point. Just listen to how passionate he is there, speaking out against the oppression of black South Africans by the apartheid regime, the outrage. And now just look at the contrast as now President Biden has been just as strident in defense of an apartheid regime in Israel. First of all, if you don't believe me that Israel is in fact an apartheid regime, don't take it from me. Take it from Amnesty International's report. I'll link to that. So how does this happen? How does anyone go from taking such a forceful stand against racist oppression, then come to defend it in another instance, perhaps even more forcefully? Then again, should we be surprised? After all, politicians aren't exactly known for their moral consistency. And that's exactly why I chose the Mandela quote from the previous episode. Now, of course, we know that Joe Biden owes his entire career in politics to the Israel lobby. This has been well established. I talk a bit about that in an earlier episode of CND. You can find it in the show notes. As I mentioned in the previous episode, an apartheid system is a racist system. And I believe any racist ideology left unchecked at least has the potential to become full-blown fascism. One might think that after having experienced German fascism during World War II, Hitler's extermination of millions of European Jews, that we would have learned not to repeat such a horror. And in fact, exactly because of this, shortly after World War II, the United Nations ratified the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, or simply the Genocide Convention. It's a short document which I'll link to in the show notes if you care to take a look at it. And because it's so short, I'll read Articles 2 and 3 here. Article 2. In the present convention, genocide means any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such. A. Killing members of the group. B. Causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. C. Deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. D. Imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. E. Forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. Article 3. The following acts shall be punishable. A. Genocide. B. Conspiracy to commit genocide. C. Direct and public incitement to commit genocide. D. Attempt to commit genocide. E. Complicity in genocide. And here's where South Africa comes in again. With its history of apartheid oppression, bringing to the International Court of Justice a genocide case against Israel in 2024. A move that has been strongly criticized by U.S. lawmakers, I might add. According to the Africa Report, in January, 210 members of Congress of both parties signed on to a letter to Secretary Blinken denouncing South Africa's genocide case against Israel at the ICJ. So the Genocide Convention, the U.S. doesn't care. The U.S. doesn't give a damn about international law. Never has. Just look at how many times the U.S. vetoed a ceasefire in the UN Security Council before finally abstaining. And look at what Israel has done anyway since then. The U.S. and Israel don't give a fuck. They don't care about international law because they're outlaws and terrorists. Israel, of course, accused South Africa of fueling the conflict by echoing what they claim is Hamas propaganda. All this while, their airwaves and social media posts routinely propagate the dehumanization of Palestinians and normalization of Israel's war crimes. Take a listen to these clips from Israeli television on Al Jazeera. We have been slaughtered. We have to slaughter them in return. We have to erase Gaza. We have to erase Hamas. It isn't like there's a choice. We have to flatten Gaza, and that's it. There are no innocents. That's just it. When you say population, there's no population, just 2.5 million terrorists. All of the land of Israel belongs to the Israeli people. All of Gaza belongs to Israel. We are now unfolding the Nakba of Gaza. Doesn't that sound like genocidal incitement to you? That's the part they like to keep quiet in the U.S. media. That's the part they really don't want us to know about. But remember this: knowledge is power, and the truth will set us free. Until next time, que todo sea amor. Walk tall, live free. Curious Naked Diatribes is a production of Javi Media. New episodes first and third Tuesdays. You can get in touch through info@javimedia.net. Javi Media.